the reason why I said briefly is because as soon as I open the mouth, you know where I'm from, don't you? And they say it's a dangerous thing to give an Irishman a mic, and it certainly is in my case. I need to give you a bit of background very quickly. I grew up in a family where comfort wasn't exactly anything that you knew about. And I'm sure if you're like me, you grew up in a family where when something happened, it was stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. Or, you're all right, get up and walk on. Or how about this one, it's your own fault, get over it. Well, that's the kind of growing up I had. It meant that really I lived with a deficit of knowing what comfort is. Over the last 2 years or so, since about May 23, Johanna and I have been backwards and forwards in Northern Ireland like the proverbial yo-yo. And the reason for that basically is because of family issues. My mother of 92 died in July 2023, and in 3 weeks I was at three funerals in 3 weeks, all the family stuff. That was in July of 23. And at the same time, Johanna's aunt, who was 94 and then 95, she broke both hips and a femur. And so she died July last year, July 24. And so we really haven't had much time, certainly I haven't had much time, to sit and reflect and think about all that's gone on in the last 18 months, 2 years. But after my mum died in particular, I began to think about what comfort actually means. And Mark's given a very good explanation of what comfort is. But for me, I suddenly realized that whilst people would say the word comfort, I didn't know what it meant. It was just a word. So I began to ask Father, what is comfort? What does that mean for me? And I might be a bit slow on the uptake sometimes about what words mean, and comfort was certainly amongst those. So he began to, the thing is when you ask God to show you something, he begins to show you in ways that you never expect. And certainly that was the case for me with comfort. So I'm sitting, minding my own business in a shopping centre on one occasion, and a small child fell, grazed their knee, gets up, cries, and runs towards Mum. And Mum just scoops the child up in her arms and sets her on her knee. And I suddenly realised that's what Father does for comfort. He scoops us up when we're hurt, when we're feeling the trauma of what's happened to us. And then as I watched the child would get to the point of stopping crying, and then Mum would whisper words in her ear. And those are words of encouragement, words of love, words of let's have a look at this and let's dust this grazed knee, and so on. And I began to realize that that's what Father wants to do with me. But that takes time. And sometimes, as Mark said, 20 minutes can deal with it. Sometimes it takes a lot longer. So one of the things that I've had to do in the last year or so is say this to the Father, Father, I've got a whole stream of things. I could write a list, a bit like Mark's list. I could write a list that goes all the way back to till I was 11 months old. Because at 11 months old, I burnt both hands. I still have the scar on my left hand to prove it. And I was separated from my mum for about six weeks or so. So there's a lot of trauma there. And things like that happen to us in life, don't they? That cause us to have this trauma, that causes us to be fearful, it causes us to be shocked, it causes all kinds of things like that to happen. But really, we need to allow Father to comfort us. So what does that mean for me? Well, one of the things I began to say, Father, I've got this list, but I'm going to allow you to bring up the ones that you want to deal with now. And That might happen at an uncomfortable point in my life for me to sit and do that, but I'm giving you the authority to bring those things up when you need me to deal with them, knowing that you won't bring anything up that I can't deal with, and that I won't be overwhelmed by going back into re-experiencing in some way that particular trauma. As I've begun to do that, I've been surprised. In a good way, I've been surprised by what Dad has done. Sorry, I call him Dad because he's told me I can do that. Because he's been very gentle about bringing me to the place where he can get talking to me about a past hurt. And in Northern Ireland, during the Troubles, yeah, there's a few hurts. Yeah. Personal as well as corporate. But there's still hurts that you feel. And I've just been amazed at how I can sit. And, you know, I like walking the hills and looking at these hills and going, oh, those look nice. I like walking the hills, and I've got a small sports car that I take out and drive about, and I'll park the car up and go for a walk and then sit and listen to the sheep and the water and running through the streams in mid-Wales. I live in Shrewsbury. So when I do that, I'm sitting there and suddenly Dad will say, do you remember that time when... And you go, okay. So, yes, what's going on now? And I say, well, I just want to put my arm around you. Let's talk about it. Sometimes I'll sit and cry. And that's something I've had to learn to do. Because I was brought up that boys didn't cry. But actually, over the years, I've learned to cry a lot. Because in crying, you're actually releasing stuff from inside your heart. And it allows Father to pour in his love instead. And as he's begun to do that, I've discovered that there's a deeper sense of peace. As Mark called it, a more coming home. I know much clearer who I am. I know much clearer that I am deeply loved, completely forgiven, fully pleasing. Because God loves me enough, Dad loves me enough to want to take away the pain that I've lived with for most of my life. It's absolutely brilliant, guys. So dare. My only thing I would say to you, dare. Dare to allow him to bring those hurts to the surface. They may be buried 20, 30, 50 years ago, but allow him to bring them up when he wants to. Because I tell you, it makes a huge difference to the way you see yourself, the way you see others, but more importantly, how you see your dad and the love that he has for you.